Hello, welcome. It's the top of the hour. Thank you for those who are on the East Coast. Join us for lunch. And if you're on the West Coast, join us with your coffee. I'm excited today. This is the last segment, but hopefully equally impactful, if not the best segment of life, liberty, and equity through a new lens. This was our series for July, and I'm excited because I have my friend with us. I have my friend Andreina Perez Hein, from Executive Director from Everybody Builds Philadelphia. Welcome so much, and thank you for coming. Let's get right into it. Andreina, tell us about your journey. How did you arrive to this moment? We'll get to your organization in a second, but let's talk a little bit about your journey to how you got here, a little bit about your background for us.
Sure. Well, first, Frank, I want to thank you for inviting me to participate in this important series, and also thank you to ESI. It's a pleasure for me personally because obviously you and I have known each other for quite a while here in Philadelphia in the construction industry, but also I think my personal journey and not only the work that Everybody Builds does, but kind of how I got here really speaks to the topic here and that pursuit of happiness and diversity in America. So I'm happy to share my story. For all of those of you just joining, I'm the executive director of Everybody Builds Philadelphia, a new nonprofit in the construction industry. And really my career and my experience has kind of wavered in between nonprofit sector as well as the construction industry. So for me personally, this is the kind of culmination and the perfect combination of my passion and experience. And so I actually, came to this country as a first generation immigrant. My parents brought my sister and I here, really seeking opportunity for us and the pursuit of that American dream for us. And through kind of seeing their struggles, their sacrifices, I'm proud to say that we both have been able to achieve that. And I think now being in this position is my opportunity to really acknowledge that and to give back, which I've been trying to do throughout my career. So I, started off really only the second one in my family to go to college after my sister. And I went on to pursue graduate education and ended up kind of jumping into the nonprofit sector. I was working in North Carolina with underrepresented communities, some of the poorest communities throughout Central and Eastern North Carolina. And actually there were Latino communities, so very close to kind of, my own heritage and my passion. And throughout that time, I kind of had that outlet for giving back. I actually then mid-career came across an opportunity in the construction industry to pursue something completely different. And I would say this is very relevant to what Everybody Builds is trying to do. I actually was open to it because I had an early exposure to construction. So in middle school, I actually pursued a shop class just because I wanted something a little more hands-on and different. I was on an academic track, but it kind of opened my eyes to working with your hands and what was out there. I actually really enjoyed it, joined a student club and kind of kept involved, on that side. So when it kind of found me mid-career, I was familiar with the construction industry and thought, hey, why not? Let's give it a try. So I jumped into the industry with no experience, went to work for a large construction manager, and really started in the field. I started as a project engineer. And I think I had some early experiences that, were quite significant and kind of foreshadow where I would end up. Not only was the first project team that I worked on all female, which 16 years ago was, pretty rare, more so than today. But also I had the opportunity to work on city renovation projects in Durham, North Carolina, which had minority participation goals. So I was working with diverse and minority contractors and really mentoring. I was helping them to learn how to do paperwork and kind of, read contracts and all of those things that you need to know on the commercial construction side to work, with a large CM and, on large projects. So I think for me that foreshadowed where, I would end up in a way to continue giving back. I kind of progressed and pursued the construction industry, went on to manage projects, and then eventually I switched over to the business development side, which is where I was working when I met you, Frank.
Yeah.
And that really gave me an opportunity to really pursue that more strategic relationship building, and kind of seek ways that my company could help transform the built environment and help those seeking to do new projects here in Philadelphia. I've been in Philly for about 10 years and have worked in the construction industry for a majority of that time. But I will say, after coming to Philadelphia, I kind of had that need to stay connected to my passion, and the nonprofit work. So I was lucky to find a large nonprofit in North Philly, that I became involved with, joined their board of directors, and 6 years later, I found myself being board chair. Then during the pandemic, I was actually quite moved to go back to do mission work. And I ended up going to work for them full time, leaving the construction industry behind and pursuing my passion for nonprofit work again. Along the way, I started seeing really what was happening here in Philly in the construction industry and kind of the serious recommitment to increasing diversity in the industry. And it kind of kept pulling me back and made me realize, hey, perhaps there's a way where I can marry my passion and my experience and skill. And along the way, Everybody Builds kind of came into periphery for me. I quickly learned about what what the mission was and what they were trying to accomplish, and knew that really this was my calling, to combine my passion and my experience in construction, and to come lead this organization to help underrepresented communities, individuals, to really change communities and change lives through construction opportunities. So that's kind of the long story, but I think that kind of leads us to Everybody Builds.
Yeah, I think that was an important story to get that baseline. And I want to just welcome people who just joined. We're talking with Andreina, my friend, Executive Director of Everybody Builds Philadelphia. And please, as we're talking, feel free to put your questions in the chat, and we will answer them if you do so. So let's go there. Everybody Builds Philadelphia. Tell us a little. You started to give us an overview about it. Just give us a little bit more detail about who you are, kind of things that you're doing, and also why is it important? Why now? Why at this time?
Yes, thanks, Frank. So as I mentioned, Everybody Builds is a new nonprofit in the construction industry. We just launched at the beginning of this year, and I kind of came on board to take it from idea and inception to execution and moving it forward. And our mission is to diversify the construction industry, but to do it in a sustainable and long-term way, where we're both helping to build diversity in the workforce, as well as in diverse contractor businesses in a coordinated way. And so the way that we're doing that is by convening the industry in a way that actually has not been done before towards that same goal. And we are modeling our approach on an organization in Chicago called Hire 360. They followed this approach, launched in 2019 with a pilot year, and to date have found great success in actually really being able to diversify the industry. So what we're doing is we've convened the major players in the private construction sector, and that includes major developers, anchor institutions, contractors, and very importantly, the unions, to work together with the commitment towards diversifying. And the reason why, we're taking this approach and this approach is needed is because the traditional approach has been really more about working in silos. A big construction project comes along. We know that it's a great opportunity to employ diverse labor as well as diverse contractors, but really we haven't been doing the legwork, to really prepare that workforce and those contractors along the way. By talking to each other, by talking with each other and being at the table together, we can kind of do that preparation long term, and not only take a project by project approach where we're setting, goals, but we're also preparing the industry in a coordinated way with the entities talking to each other and planning ahead for that growth, and that workforce that we need. Also, the reason why now is the time, just in Philadelphia, there's been really much more focus on diversifying within the trades. There has been strides that have been made. And, I personally feel that if we're ever going to really make a dent and do this work, now is the time to do it. And this is why I'm here, because I only get behind things that I 100% really believe in and believe that can be done. So that's kind of a high level on Everybody Builds.
Yeah, I know that about you. You're in it. You better believe something's going to get done. You mentioned lead work that you're doing. I wanted to talk to you about one aspect of your lead work. When I was researching the organization, one of the things that's mentioned is that your data-driven approach to this work. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what that means and kind of where you would want your data, like kind of what are some of the outcomes you would like to see that your data will help you get there?
Yes, thanks, Frank. That is a really a key component and one of the major areas that we're kind of gathering ourselves to move forward and work in. Our approach is really going to be driven and is being driven by data. We have gotten the agreement from our stakeholders to really share the construction pipeline and future information on what their planned construction projects look like. This then allows us to gather that information and properly forecast what those needs in the industry actually are in terms of workforce down to different trade levels, as well as really take a look at what the capacity building needs are for diverse contractor companies to really scale up to in order to be able to meet those needs. So, taking it by an actual data-driven approach versus, what has been done in the past. This is actually a group that has come together and, is going to provide that information to say, okay, we can kind of look at this real data and make real forecasts and then, kind of update those and change those as the conditions change or as plans change. And, as you know, really that's what it's all about. That's kind of the key first piece component. And not only does it allow us to forecast, but then I'll kind of take it to, one of our other major components, which is the diverse contractor programming. It allows us to identify opportunities from our stakeholders and partners that can be open and available to diverse contractors and that we can help prepare them for. So part of the, involvement in Everybody Builds is the commitment to consider and give opportunities to these diverse contractors that we're helping to build up. And what we're doing is building out a contractor program where we can actually assess individual trade contractor businesses, where they are, what their needs are, connect them to the either existing business support resource organizations in the industry, which there are many of, in a coordinated fashion, ensure that they have the resources that they need and kind of the sustainable capacity to grow their businesses over time, with then connection to future project opportunities so that they can better forecast, what are next opportunities out there. One of the biggest really hurdles in the construction industry for small construction businesses is really just maintaining that pipeline of work and being able to work from one project to the next, maintain your staff, meet payroll, given kind of the pay cycles in construction, and really overcome, those hurdles.
Yeah, thank you so much. You mentioned a couple of times you're working with unions, and this is a union town. Just want to ask you in general how has that gone? How they played a role? Anything that you want to see changes that would make things more equitable? Just wanted to get your feedback around that.
Well, yeah, Frank, what I'll say is, I mean, the trade unions have been part of the reason why Everybody Builds is moving forward. We have some of the largest unions as our founding, collaborative board. It's been the Philadelphia Building Trades Council, as well as the Labor Districts Council and the Eastern Atlantic Regional Carpenters. who kind of stepped up along with GBCA and some major developers and said, yeah, we need to work towards this and we need to find a solution that works in a long-term way. And so with that commitment, that kind of set the stage and represents the majority of the trade unions out there. The way that we're working with them now is, many of these trades have existing pre-apprenticeship programs. Pre-apprenticeship programs are a way for individuals who have not had exposure to the construction industry through, either family members previously being in the industry, to find an entryway to family sustaining wage construction labor and trade jobs. And we are working with these programs to support them, to identify where the barriers for either engagement, recruitment, or retention are in the programs, and help to break down those barriers and make kind of the next step to achieving a first-year apprenticeship more attainable for diverse individuals from backgrounds that have not traditionally been as represented in the trades. And I'll give you one example. We are working with the CARP program, which is the Carpenter's Apprentice Ready program. It's been around for about 7 years, and they have been really working to bring in diverse individuals into the carpentry trades. And we have been supporting them already through, just the first few months of our existence by providing job readiness tools, as well as starting to identify what other barriers exist out there that we can support graduates out of the program so that they can then step into first-year apprenticeships. We held a really employment connection event where we brought out contractors, subcontractors, along with those individuals graduating from the program that needed sponsorships, that were looking for employment positions, to make connections, direct connections, to bring awareness to the opportunities that actually do exist in the trades. And our plan is to continue working with programs like CARP to make them accessible and make, communities where the access has not typically been there more aware of the opportunities. So, I think personally, I expect to see, it's not going to be an overnight shift, obviously, but with this commitment and working with the individual trade programs, I do truly believe that we can achieve that long-term diversifying of the construction labor trades.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to remind people that if you have a question, please feel free to put in a chat and we'll get right to it. Another question for you. Well, let me set the stage. Philadelphia is known as one of the largest poorest cities in the country. Wondering how giving access, your thoughts in general about giving access to having more minority contractors on board, access to more, more jobs that you talk about, just sustainable, equitable jobs in your last answer. How would you think that would impact wealth building, impact the city overall, and how would it help in your estimation, just from your experience?
Sure. Yeah. I'll say that is really our overarching goal, right? It's to drive that economic growth by giving access to either, businesses, individuals through entrepreneurship opportunities that, kind of just need that extra push, that extra support to build up their businesses. That then becomes, a generational shift that you have in how, businesses can get passed down in families, how you kind of bring, new opportunities to the table for these individuals. That also stands true for the workforce side. There's a lot of programs now in the city that are trying to reach younger students, right? And starting in even middle school to expose them to the trades, to the opportunities out there beyond achieving a 4-year degree or even a 2-year degree. That is not attainable for many. And that is a way that, whole communities and families can step into family sustaining wages, because coming into the industry, depending on kind of what trade you're in, you immediately step into jobs and opportunities that can provide for your family, um, versus many others, jobs that you could step into without a college education or a 2-year degree. You will get the training through pre-apprenticeship programs. Apprenticeship programs are all about training, and leading up to becoming a skilled tradesperson. And I see that as really the way out of poverty, the way out of really lack of economic self-sufficiency for many families, for many individuals, and for many communities here in Philadelphia. The opportunities are coming. They're out there. We're working on the private sector, but we know that infrastructure funding is going to be coming, and is already here for the public sector. And there are many opportunities. It's just a matter of breaking down barriers to entry, to retention, and getting individuals into positions, getting them the resources that they need, and starting that long-term shift of changing communities and helping communities rise.
One of the things you mentioned earlier was the pipeline and access to the pipe, helping businesses get access to the pipeline. The other caveat often is access to capital. When businesses, not only to start their businesses, but as they're sustaining, particularly in the beginning stages of that, they need access to capital. There's any partnerships, any thoughts that everybody builds have around helping to access or help manage capital that's needed for small businesses to survive and thrive?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Frank. That is obviously, a key piece, as you said, for small businesses. Often that capital is needed at beginning of projects for mobilization costs, to meet payroll, to be able to pay, benefits for employees, and so on. And while, some might say, oh, well, there's plenty of capital out there, how accessible it actually is to small businesses that face, certain hurdles, that's kind of another factor that you have to consider. And so what our plan is, we've really come into this space to collaboratively work with existing organizations that are out there. So we are, collaborating with organizations like the Economy League's PAGE program. We're collaborating with the Enterprise Center. We're fiscally sponsored by the Urban Affairs Coalition. And so we're talking to all of these different organizations and kind of, taking inventory of what opportunities are out there, what additional barriers might still exist, as we're talking to these diverse contractors. Our plan is really to start and grow a loan fund. The way Hire 360 did it was it served as a line of credit where collateral was put up for contractors, which can also be, a hurdle. And this was something accessible to contractors on a project-based, case where they could access it to help meet those kind of initial costs or costs along the way in the projects, and kind of serve as a revolving line of credit. And so our goal is we are, with these partners that we've brought in from the private sector, really the model is to not only help provide opportunities, but to invest and support, the contractors as well as the workforce. We're looking to kind of start and grow that fund, and looking for particular partners, to come in and kind of kick that off with us. And our plan is to really solidify what that might look like, what we can kind of include, or who we can collaborate with that will break down additional barriers to grow that and really kick that off, as we move forward later this year with getting it into place.
Thank you so much. How can people be supportive of your mission? So I know that you have some good partners, but you always can use more. And so, and I know it's in various ways. Are there appeals that you're making, or appeals that if you were the audience, people who will record, what kind of things can we be supportive of you as you're doing this important work?
Sure, I appreciate that. Well, first and foremost, right now we're trying to grow awareness of what we're doing, what our approach is. I've been bringing in and talking to some of the major developers and anchor institutions, and owners in the industry, as well as contractors. But some of the specific, appeals that I'm making obviously, number one is support and participation is first and foremost, right? Supporting that kind of diversity growth in whatever kind of role you play in the real estate or construction industry, whether it's through sharing awareness of everybody builds or recommending, to those who may be developers, have, a series of construction projects in the private sector coming up to get engaged. And being at the table so that we can hear what the hurdles are, what the concerns are, also making recommendations both for diverse trade contractors. We have more information on what our programming will look like on our website that, maybe are at that place where they could use, that support so that they can access some of these larger construction projects or kind of work their way up to accessing the larger construction projects. And then, of course, on a community level, it's kind of just getting the word out about the construction industry, the opportunities that exist, apprenticeship programs, and the fact that many of these union trade programs are interested in diversifying and engaging individuals into their labor force and their programs. So just kind of spreading that awareness out there. And then, of course, we're starting that contractor loan fund, so we'll be kind of making an appeal for contributions towards that. And we've also started a barrier reduction fund that is working to directly support individuals to access pre-apprenticeship programs that we'll be looking to build out as well. So right now we're kind of really moving forward with piloting, if you will, and trying to kind of gather that support. We've had some great initial investors and funders so that we can really kick off into these next few years. But as we really expand our programming and our opportunities, we'll definitely be looking and are looking to build that. And
I have one quick question from the chat, and then I have a final question. The quick question from the chat comes from Bill. Do you work outside of Philadelphia?
So currently, because we are so new, we are focused here in Philadelphia. The hope really is, and the plan is to grow from there, right? Once we're able to really establish ourselves here in the next couple of years, build out this model that is specific to Philadelphia and to this region, and then from there build out and kind of expand our reach. So the short answer is yes. Right now it's just in Philly, but hopefully in the future that will expand.
All right, last question, which within 2 minutes. We were talking before everybody came online about, I remember when you were pregnant with your children. Now there's 6, almost 7 and 5, going to first grade and kindergarten. They're in the world, let's say, 15 years, and now everybody builds. Philadelphia has done their work. What does the world look like because everybody builds Philadelphia exists?
Yeah, thanks, Frank. Everything that I do, I try to pass down to my children, and I really do with that viewpoint, and what their future will look like, and what I want them to see and experience. For me, 18 years from now, this industry will look so accessible. It will look so diverse that those of us today might not even recognize it. It won't be, ooh, can we find minority contractors? It'll be, wow, out of all of these minority contractors that we have, how can we give them all opportunities? And it would be, something that they would consider kind of right off the bat, even going into the industry versus it being, kind of an untraditional route, if you will. So I moved to Philly because I fell in love with the city. I actually shopped for cities. One of the reasons was because it is so commuter friendly, had a strong, kind of robust construction industry when I moved here. And now really, I kind of try to pass down my passion, my work to my children so that they can carry that, and they can carry that love for the city. We've lived in Center City for the past 10 years since we moved here, and since they've been born. So really, I hope that they kind of grow up, seeing the passion that I'm putting out there and the work that I'm doing, and that they can follow in those footsteps.
Well, thank you so much. That is our time. I want to thank everyone for joining us. A special shout out to the person who brought us together, I saw he joined, Mike Erickson, friend of ours, the reason why we even connected. So special shout out to him. But Andreina, thank you so much. We look forward to working with you and supporting you in this important work. Thank you to everyone all of our friends who joined, and look forward to the next series. This is the end of our Life, Liberty, and Equity Through a New Lens. We look forward to having another series sometime soon. Everybody have a great afternoon. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Take care.